So this is ABT's Don Quixote Pop-Up Book Club. I was perplexed when I got this invitation to moderate this discussion because I would venture to say that the vast majority of us and also the audience has never picked up a copy of Cervantes' Don Quixote. So it's a book club discussion without the book for all intents and purposes. Have you read it, Santo?
Excerpts only.
Excerpts for me only as well.
In like a survey course in college or something.
Right. Well,
I referred to, for me, it was the Dore illustrations, the Gustave Dore illustrations that I still refer to, and I send around.
Right.
And,
Right. Well, so I digressed already, which I'll probably do in innumerable times, but I should first introduce everyone. We have with us Devon Teuscher, who is a principal dancer with the company, and I'm sure most of you have seen her grace the stage. Since 2017, yeah, wow, seems like longer than that.
No, yeah, 2017 when I became
a principal, right. And Devon will be making her debut as Kitri this season, so we're excited about that. And then Herman Cornejo, who's been a principal with ABT since 2003. So when did you actually join? I don't have that in my notes.
I joined 1998. I was an apprentice, and then 1999 Corps de Ballet.
Right. And Santo Loquasto is the designer, costume set designer for the production, which began with Baryshnikov's production in 1978. And that was the second time I worked with you, correct, Santo?
That's right.
Right. The first was Push Comes to Shove in 1976. And so here we are, 50 years later, old and gray.
Trying to finish it.
Yes, exactly. Well, and I should also introduce myself. My name is Susan Jones. I'm the company's Regisseur. I joined the company in 1971, 55 years ago. Oddly, coincidentally, it's on ABT's anniversary. On January 11th was my first contract. And then I went on to the artistic staff in my last year. I danced my last year, 78, 79, and I became an assistant ballet master that year. And then things went on from there. So I think I made the right decision in quitting when I did. But anyway, so here we are with Don Quixote, which seemed, when Misha first did his production, it was called Don Quixote, and then in parentheses it said Kitri's Wedding. And I feel now it should say Don Quixote, parentheses, the gift that keeps giving.
Perhaps.
Yeah, perhaps. But I was thinking, why did he put that second title on it?
I remember that in a score somehow. But I wouldn't swear to it.
Well, what I thought about it was perhaps there seems to be a little confusion sometimes about the ballet and why it's called Don Quixote, but Don Quixote is not really the focal point. It's really it's a love story about Kitri and Basilio.
Right.
And how they end up together. So I wondered whether or not that was just a way of pulling focus.
Making it an anecdote rather than a story. That this was, because it's, because it's his travels, essentially, that this was just an event on the way at this one town.
Right. Herman, maybe you can just give us a short synopsis, and we'll help you if you it's not rocket science, right?
It's not rocket science, but you can jump in at any time.
Okay.
Mine is very brief, so pay attention.
Okay.
So, Don Quixote is a self-proclaimed knight inspired by the heroic novels he has read. He embarks on a series of adventures across the Spanish region of Castilla-La Mancha. Living in a world shaped by his imagination, he dreams of his beloved Dulcinea, whom he envisions as the most beautiful and noble lady in the world. During his travels through Spain, Don Quixote encounters Kitri, a free spirit and radiant young woman, and mistakes her for Dulcinea. Kitri is deeply in love with Basilio, a charming, handsome, but poor barber. Her father, Lorenzo, who owns a restaurant in the town square, hopes to improve the family's fortune by marrying her to the wealthy noble Gamache, often called Camacho. Unable to gain Lorenzo's approval, Basilio devises a clever plan. In front of everyone, he appears to take his own life for love. Devastated, Kitri rushes to his side and begs Don Quixote to help convince her father to allow them to marry before Basilio takes his final breath. Moved by the situation, Lorenzo finally agrees to their marriage. Moments later, everyone realizes that Basilio was never really dying. His clever plan worked, and Kitri and Basilio are finally allowed to get married and be together. Don Quixote is one of the most joyful and technical demanding ballets in the classical repertoire, filled with humor, virtuoso dancing, and vibrant Spanish character. It remains one of Marius Petipa's greatest masterpieces alongside Sleeping Beauty, Bayadere, Raimonda, and Swan Lake. It continues to delight audiences around the world with its energy, charm, and unforgettable dancing.
Excellent. You get an A+. You didn't leave anything out. Yeah, no, that was great. That was terrific. Yeah.
I find the story so straightforward and fun. For me, it's one of the most joyful ballets to do, honestly.
Right.
It's one of those that you don't have to put, maybe you have to put a character on, but it's so like in the moment, so you need to be so present as a human being.
Yeah,
and,
right.
And less as a dancer, like pretending to be a prince.
Yeah, no, it's closer. I think it's closer to, certainly for you, it's closer to your character, in your personality, I should say.
Yeah, so it's something about the culture.
Yeah.
I lived in Spain as well, so for me, the Spanish culture is very close to me, and the humor that Don Quixote has in the ballet, it's so fantastic. It's very clever the way it's done.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. Devon, when did you first see Don Quixote? Was it before you were in the company, or?
No, so I had never seen the full-length ballet before I joined ABT. My first experience with anything related to Don Quixote was that one of those ABT Now videos that had Paloma doing the wedding pas de deux, and I think I watched it. I probably broke the VCR watching that the amount of times I watched it.
We're rewinding with the pencil, right? Because it wouldn't feed. Yeah.
She was like my idol when I was younger. So I think it was that was my first exposure to the ballet at all, was just seeing that. And then joining the company and then being a part of it as a young apprentice. I remember just like to Herman's point, it was the most fun I'd had on stage in a while, and to be a part of that, to be young and in the company and to see all my like idols right in front of me doing these incredible feats of physical, technical ability, but then also just having so much joy. It was really exciting for me. yeah, so I had no exposure to it before ABT. So this is my
Yeah,
own.
I think for the new people in the company, it's like it's a time that they can just breathe, because it's not that demanding for the core like Swan Lake is, or Giselle, or it's not as complicated as some ballets. So it is, and then you get to be totally entertained in the third act when you're sitting on the side. So yeah. But then very shortly after you joined the company, I'm sure you started doing Flower Girls and
Yeah, you know, I've done all the female roles except for maybe Cupid in it because that's
you were a little
but,
tall. Yeah.
yeah. But yeah, I've done, yeah, you get to do Flower Girls and then Mercedes and Dryad and even the tall lady, the tall demis, you know, it's like working your way up through all of the roles of
Right.
ballet. So for me now to step into Keytree, it's like, okay, this is like the finishing step of all of these. I can check this one off as well in the ballet. I've done this one too now.
I think that all of our Keytrees have gone through that same process of starting in the core, I think. I have to look at the list. Maybe Hiseo, well, she probably did Flower Girls, or I know she did Queen of the Dryad. I'm not sure if she did Corps de Ballet or not, but I think everybody's been through that process, which is a great, I think it makes a better platform for the company in general and how cohesive they feel about each other. And yeah, it's good. It's a good journey.
Yeah, there's a sense of camaraderie. There's a sense of like you, and for me, it's actually interesting because I am debuting with Andrew, who doesn't have as much experience with the ballet. He's
Right.
only ever done it once and as a Secadia, and now he's doing Basilio. And you know, to me, I know all of the music so well from like years of being on stage with it and
Right.
years every other single role. So I know it all just by heart without even really knowing. And it's interesting to do it with someone who has much less experience with the ballet in terms of even knowing the music and even knowing like what's happening on stage. Like I could tell you what's happening on stage just from years of being out
Right.
there.
I'm sure that helps him feel incredibly supported. Yeah, to have you there. Yeah, I think it does. Yeah. Santo, can you tell us a little bit how it all started? What was the germ?
The germ. Well, you know, I was trying to remember, I'm sure this is accurate. Misha, after Push, when did he do the Nutcracker
He
for
did
television?
77, the year before John Q.
Right. And so I guess during that period, I was just around by then. I mean, my introduction to the company was Push Comes to Shove.
Right.
And there was a little bit of follow-up with, you know, the excitement of Push. And I was, you know, which was considerable. And I was beguiled by ABT, as one has to be. And liked being around. And I was approached by the team of people that surrounded Misha, whom you were were very intimate with, all of them.
Yes.
To do.
So
Yes, 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 of course. And you and I was asked to take on Don Q, which was, of course, a thrilling opportunity for me. And while I had been designing in New York, it was still a big step and a big project. And the fascinating part was all the people who surrounded Misha, you know, so the meetings in this very room often.
Wow.
Were free, yes. And there was the table I'm sitting at was at the other room, and we would meet at this long table, and it was quite a crowd. I can't remember when Helena was there, if she was there at the beginning.
Elena Chernyshova.
Yeah.
Yeah, Elena Chernyshova, for those of you that don't know, was a ballet mistress that was with ABT. Misha actually brought in, I think she was there. She was there for Nutcracker, helping do the snow scene, which was Vinogrado, whatever his name was, I forget his name, choreographed. So it was not Misha's choreography, and she set that. And then after that was Don Q. I don't think she came on the staff officially. Maybe
she was around definitely on Cinderella, lest we forget.
Cinderella later, and before that on Bayadere in 1980.
Yes. So with Natasha.
Yeah, with Makarova. Mm-hmm. Yeah. But yeah, she was around, definitely, and helped set the dances that now are still with us. The legacy, the Petapa legacy that has survived, which is basically all of the dancing, the Corps de Ballet, the Flower Girls, the Spada, and Mercedes, generally their material, all of the variations of Kitri and Basilio, except for one. We're adding the cup variation, which Misha Regisseur has graciously allowed us to do, which is, for those of you that haven't seen, there is a video that we did live from Lincoln Center with Cynthia Harvey and Baryshnikov in the mid 80s. And in that, which is, I think it's on YouTube, you can see this famous variation that Misha inserted into Taverna.
When he's drunk, he gets drunk.
He drinks during the variation, so we call it the cup variation. And it's actually music that I think it's from Paquita. It's not from Don Quixote, but it's from Paquita. And it was just a huge triumph. I mean, the house just filled with applause. It just vibrated after he did that solo on opening night. It was just incredible.
Yeah.
So happy that we're getting to do that. And I'm looking forward to seeing Herman do it. But anyway, I forget where we were, about the beginning. Yeah. So
just about, yes, the assemblage of people who helped, who were all new to me, of course.
Right.
And Misha's energy and his English was still, yes. But we managed, and he had, of course, his own personality and enthusiasm. So it was incredibly exciting. I always say it was a combination visually of Goya's paintings of Spain and Yves Saint Laurent, who had at that period done these amazing peasant dresses, which I ruthlessly duplicated for the Gypsy Girls. I mean, it was, when we tried them on recently, and I was being complimented, which was nice, and because they weren't as heavy as the other ones, I think. It was these, and it's pure in our way, Yves Saint Laurent, and that was a kind of aesthetic. It was the kind of 20th century, because it was still. And 17th century, actually, which is
interesting. Yeah, it's amazing. There are very few productions scenically and costume wise that have survived as well as this production that you've given us. It's kind of remarkable. Like I said, the gift that keeps giving.
Well, the truth is, it was when Kevin did his version that we sort of finished it. Because
I remember,
classically, I have to say, we ran out of money.
Yeah.
And I had tried to kind of put it together for this first premiere, and it was the wings were just kind of plain and all that. It was the same feeling, and it wasn't until we did it with Kevin, that I really fleshed it out.
Yes, yeah.
And Natasha Katz was brought on to light it, which kind of energized it again in a way which was fantastic.
Yeah.
And and it revitalized it in many ways. I missed the humor of Misha's, his own personal. He was and is you know, his comic sense is remarkable.
Absolutely.
I watch him from the wings coach dancers about the shtick of you know, I remember on Gaiete watching him show someone how to just manipulate a handkerchief and do, you know, he was, you know, it's a genius that he has.
Yeah, absolutely.
Beyond all of his brilliant technique.
Yeah. It's interesting because I think that there are a lot of artists that have comedic abilities and instincts on the stage, but I think that the remarkable thing about him is that he was able to also coach people.
Yes, I think he loved it.
I think he did too. And it's hard because, especially when you're dealing with dancers that may not have that instinct, it takes a particular eye and kind of path to find it and how to correct them in order to bring it out of them. There's nothing generic about it because you have to also respond to Herman and Devon and Christine and Catherine, and you have to like deal with all of those people, the arkamashas. I am fascinated to see. First of all, they're all three of them. It's it's Luis Ribagorda, Alexia Gudin, and Duncan Lyle, and Sun Wu. There are four of them. Sun Wu Han. They're so different from each other. They seem to have a different take on it, even though they have done it before in Kevin and my production. It's amazing how they've taken the same material and made it different, even though it's virtually the same. Nobody would really get that they're drastic changes. But I can't remember why I got onto that. But I just thought about it.
It's sort of like what's clowning. You know, I remember saying to Kevin,
right,
you know, you're not getting the fish joke right. Let me show you how I think it works.
Right.
And, you know, and it's, you know, there was this corny, like a vaudeville or a burlesque business. Mm-hmm. And of course, you know, Misha embraced all that fearlessly.
Sure. Amazing when you consider it was his second production to direct. He had never done anything like that before. I just lost. Oh, there we go.
There we are.
Oh, there he is.
That's right.
Actually, that's me. I'm next to Gamache. I see my costume.
Oh, that's your dress.
Yes, my face is cut off. That's. Thank you, Sarah, for putting that up. That's brilliant. Yeah. No, it was really. I think that. You know, I've seen a lot of people come into ABT and direct productions from scratch. And I have enormous respect for Misha for a lot of reasons. But to do that, to be a principal dancer under the pressure that he was under at that time in his life, and to stage the ballets in the manner that he did was really remarkable and certainly taught me a lot about being in the front of the room. Amazing. He was amazing. But you, Santo, you had, you said before it was a big opportunity for you, but you had won your first Tony the year before, right?
Cherry Orchard.
With Cherry.
Yes.
Cherry Orchard, 7. I looked it up last night when the Tonys were on.
Yeah, that was the first one. But I was not actually even nominated before that. I was just started early, and I was lucky. And
right, and you had worked with Twyla for quite a while. And I had
started work with Twyla and her company.
Right.
But like the second thing was Push with Twyla.
Right.
You know.
Right. And now we've done Devon's. You were in Push, right? Yes, of course. Yes. That season. Yeah, how quickly I forget. Of course, as in the Martine Van Hemel role. So Devon, what is this like for you, approaching your debut?
It's very exciting. I'm excited to finally get the opportunity to take on this role because, as I said, I've done all the other ones, so it feels like this is the culmination of that. And it's also daunting for me personally a little bit. It's not to the point you all were speaking of earlier. It is a comedy, and it is uh, funny. And I don't particularly think that's my natural inclination. I was born a very serious person from a young age, and I had an old soul and a serious soul. And so give me the ballets where the woman dies at the end and I'm happy. So for me, it's a particular challenge to take on a different type of character, a different type of person and persona. But it's been very good for me at the same time because it also has forced me to really let go a lot more and just be a little bit more free and wild and not so maybe controlled or yeah, maybe not even as it's thoughtful, but not as like as thoughtful as usual. So I think it's been a challenge for me, but also been very good for me. And I think also the perfect time for me to take on something like
Right.
The lighthearted nature is really, really good. And also within that, still finding like the purpose of Kitri and her point within the whole story to the point that, Don Quixote, the novel, the book, as it is a book club, is not necessarily about, is not the same story that the ballet is. And so, but somehow trying to understand like how that does relate and why that relates. And, Kitri's, in my estimation and view, Kitri's journey is all about this like, this opportunity to be treated as a respectful woman, right? And to be treated with chivalry. And this is what Don Quixote's quest is this quest for chivalry and this quest for justice. And so even within all of that comedy, there is this like desire for her to be taken seriously and for her to be treated with love and respect as she deserves and deserve to be. So it's been interesting to find that balance of the freedom and the joy and just the comedy of it, but also within that having like an arc within the whole thing, like
Right.
starts to where she ends and how that how I can portray that within my own way.
Right. No, and I think that this what I said before. It's not rocket science, and it the fact that you've had the platform of getting in from the bottom and moving up through the ranks in this ballet, it's just that exposure to the various artists, which Don Q is again, for a core member, you actually can watch a lot of what's going on. So you assimilate a lot of probably a lot of the timing, the beats that you need in order to get the little laugh here and there. It's somewhat, it works into your DNA, and yeah, I'm sure it will be incredible. I can't wait. Yeah.
To say, luckily, like, yeah, it's comedy, but there's also a lot of people doing comedy within it. So like, I don't, I can.
It's not all on you.
On me, like,
yeah.
There's Q, there's Gamache, there's Sancho Panza, there's like they are very funny. They are like,
yes,
very funny. They have bits. They haven't like watch them as much as you can.
Yeah.
With
they are the ones.
Yeah, so that it relieves me a little bit of having to like be the funny one all the time. It's like I can actually have a little seriousness to me as well within this. So it's nice to know that my only role is not to be just funny. It's also to like tell.
Of course.
Yeah.
And blow us away, technically. There's
know.
that. Yeah.
Yeah.
Herman, when did you first perform Basilio?
I first performed Basilio in 2006. So we were on tour to Japan, Tokyo.
Right.
And I was only cast to do Seguidillas and the gypsy guy, now called Roman.
Wow.
And then unfortunately, Maxime got injured, who was performing with Xiomara Reyes.
Mhm.
And so Kevin, like 3 days before the show, he asked me if I was willing to step in and do it. And so I said yes without even thinking. As you said, when you go through the roles, like you have the entire ballet in your head, even though I didn't know exactly the steps, like I knew the scenes, but I did have 3 days to learn the whole ballet. I remember rehearsing with you and Jose Manuel Carreño in the hallways of the Winkakaika Theater, teaching me everything. And Xiomara had a sprained ankle, so he was unable to rehearse with me apart from like maybe an hour here and there. So I basically didn't rehearse at all. I just learned the ballet in the hallways and did it on stage.
Going cold.
Going cold. But also have beautiful memories of that show because Julio, who is my mentor, another principal dancer with American Ballet Theater, Julio Boca, he did his final show, his final Don Quixote, the day before I did my first one.
Wow.
And I did it with his jacket. So it almost felt like double the special.
Passing the torch.
Passing the torch.
Yeah, amazing. That's amazing. And of course, what helped prepare you is that just like Devon had her videos, you had your video, I'm sure, of Misha, the Live from Lincoln Center, and knew every step from that. It wasn't vastly different, except maybe for the what we now call the Roma, what was called formerly the Gypsy Camp.
Yeah, definitely. I had my videos, but I didn't miss a show since I joined ABT. I will be in the wings for every single show. So in those 8 years that I was at ABT, maybe we've done Don Q twice or 3 times, 3 years, during those 8 years. And I've seen all of them. Angel, Stifel, Marcelo, like everyone doing Don Q. So I'm super lucky that I joined the company so young to experience that from the wings.
Yeah, wow, that is incredible. Yeah, it really gets under your skin, these ballets, when you have the opportunity to really watch, and that there are some ballets where that's not possible, but it certainly is with Don Quixote when you're not doing a variation or whatever, you're just in the core, you really can see that everything. Yeah.
Also, when you have the opportunity to see so many dancers, you learn from the good and from the bad. You learn what not to do, what works, what doesn't work. So it's been a beautiful journey.
The basis of what I do. The card file in my brain is getting very full, I'll say, but I have all these amazing memories of so many people that have done the principal roles and the Flower Girls. And I mean, I go back to Cynthia Harvey being in Flower Girls in the first production, and it was her big break in Misha's in 1978. It was her first big break. I think she was still in the Court of Ballet, promoted soon after that. And then 8 years later, she was doing Kitri with him on Live from Lincoln Center. So yeah, there were some stories that I thought it would be fun to recount. So we were at Kennedy Center in 1978. I don't know if you were still there when the lights went out in Foggy Bottom, Santo. Oh, we can't hear you. You have to unmute yourself.
Am I now?
Yeah, you're good now. Were you still there? Because it was the first season.
I don't know if I was there after it opened,
You went. It was right before Christmas, and that's where we opened Don Quixote.
Oh, I remember that.
Yeah, of course. I mean, I know you know that. I'm saying that for the public. Yeah. No, we were doing first act, and the lights in the whole Foggy Bottom area went out. There was a total blackout, and the generator didn't kick in right away. I mean, it was totally black. I think for some reason there were some, I guess, emergency lights, but
right, I would think,
low
yeah.
level, right? They couldn't bring the curtain in. They couldn't do anything. So then they got the fire department to bring big floodlights and put them in the back of the house to put on the stage. Well, by then, the orchestra had pulled out flashlights, right? We had no phones with lights. They pulled out flashlights and stuff, and they had started playing Christmas carols because it was like the week before Christmas. And we were sitting on the edge of the stage, kicking our feet and singing Christmas carols with the audience. And I know eventually. Oh, and Enrique Martinez, who was he was a ballet master at the time. I think actually he was more than that. He had he was an assistant.
And was Sancho Panza, was he not?
He was Sancho Panza. He was dressed as Sancho Panza, and Hilda Morales, who was a flower girl. They were doing tango. It went from Christmas carols to tango. I mean, it was wild. It was wild, but it was so much fun. And then finally, they gave us candles and went, show's over, they'll give their tickets back because we didn't get through the first act. And we went to the dressing room and got dressed in candlelight. And then as we're walking down the hill, all the lights came on, and we was like, quick run, that we don't want to go back. It was such a great time. But yeah, a lot of memories come back for me with Don Q, and mostly all good. A few that were revolved around injuries, not so good, but only a couple of those. So, but yeah, I don't know. So, and then Santo, was Cinderella your next production for the company?
Oh dear.
I mean, full length, I'll say.
I guess it was. There haven't been. I think that's the only other one, isn't it?
Right.
Yes.
Yes, I think so. It was Cinderella, choreographed by Peter Anastas and
Misha.
Yeah. And then, of course, there were masses of Tharp ballets that you did.
And Mark Morris and
Taylor,
David Gordon and Paul Taylor. I have a wonderful photo of you and Paul together in my house.
Oh, is that
I love one from Black Tuesday.
In rehearsal.
Yeah.
Yeah, Rosalie O'Connor took that.
I love that picture of the two of you.
When I celebrated my 50th anniversary since I signed my contract, that was in 2021, the company gave me a selection of photos to choose from, and I got two from Rosalie, and the Paul Taylor one was one of them. I treasure that.
I love that one.
Yeah. I don't think I have any picture with Misha, unless it's my feet in the background. I don't think I have any picture with Natasha until after I retired from dancing. It's funny, we didn't do all of that.
Right. I have a very bad picture of Natasha and Jerry Robbins and me when I did Other Dances.
Other Dances was not to get off the Don Q. We were off when he was choreographing, and Lucia called me one day. My phone rings and I pick up the phone, and it's Lucia Chase. I thought I was going to be fired or something. I didn't know why she was calling. And she said, "Oh, Natasha's working with Royal Ballets in town. She's performing, and Misha has some things, and Jerry wants to choreograph, and could you come in the studio and work?" And they called in some other dancer, male company member, and we went in and worked with Jerry for like 3 days. It was like, and nobody was there. It was like, I think I told my good friend Denise Warner, for years and years and years and years, I never mentioned about this incredibly magical 3 days of working with Jerry on the material that became, some of which became Other Dances.
Right.
And then we went in and taught it to Misha and Natasha. And I mentioned it once to her, and she went, I don't remember. Like, it was
I love the picture because she's smoking, of course, and she's sort of, I'm showing a sketch, and
right.
and I'm getting notes, no doubt, but it's
right. That's funny. Well, to get back to this, I think that for me, it's been interesting to have gone through all of the productions. I wasn't. We did Misha's. We did in 1991 Vladimir Vasiliev did only that one season. The company did his version of Don Quixote, which also used your sets, and they were somewhat supplemented. I don't know if you were consulted or not about the taverna table that Mercedes danced on, but I was only involved in that production from a rehearsal scheduling standpoint. I had my daughter the summer before, so I was doing mostly the schedules that year, and I think also rehearsing Romeo and maybe a few other ballets. But so I wasn't so involved in that production. And we did Kevin and I co-staged in ’95. And we did a lot of studying of there weren't so many tapes available, but we had an old Bolshoi tape, an old Mariinsky tape, and kind of did our homework because, of course, we were challenged by the fact that we didn't want to steal everything. So we had to, from Misha, and so we had to determine what was in the traditional version, what was handed down from Pettipas, what survived from Pettipas by looking at those tapes, and then figuring out what, with the framework of the score at the time, we had to modify the musical score. So Jack Everly, who was our conductor at the time, helped us with that. But of course, we were also told, because of money situation, every page of music that you change costs this much money, and you have to try to use what's there, and we'll modify it, we'll kind of reorchestrate it, but it's not going to be a big musical change. So we were within the confines of the set Misha had used, in the confines of the orchestration that was used prior. And so it was a real challenge to sort of get it to end up to be somewhat different than what Misha did. And now here we are again, Susan and I, trying to do the same thing. Of course, her approach is fresher because her reference point is only as done Tree and Quit the Dryad. I don't think she ever did Mercedes. Maybe. But so here we are again, trying to do the same thing. And I said to Kevin the other day, I said, consider anything that looks like it's your choreography as an homage. So that's what we're trying to liven it up and direct the comedy a little bit more, so that not everybody's in a total state of improv while they're out there. Crossing our.
Susan, do you find this a challenge for you now to have done Kevin's and now having to do with Susan? How do you recreate in your brain new things to make it look fresh?
You see, my advantage, I guess, is that I know what Kevin and I did with say the end of Act 3 in our production. Kevin and I decided on that. We worked for a month together in the studio and went through every moment of the ballet. I'd be Sancho Panza, he'd be Don Q. I'd be Mercedes, he'd be Espada. We'd do the fandango together. So I have the advantage in looking at the production now and the existing score of knowing what was recreated and done new in 1995. And Susan doesn't have that reference. So I had to sit her down and say, okay, we have to change this, and this. And she's done the Roma camp is primarily her choreography. She did most everything that had to do with the principals. I have sort of choreographed the opening of Don Q after the prologue, and the end of Act 3 and the end of Taverna. And again, it's not rocket science when you've been handling corps de ballet as long as I have. And I have a vocabulary in my head from the various productions as well that I could pull. So I have to say that after this, I think I look forward to seeing all of you dance it, and I don't want to see Don Q ever again. It's just been so long. I did a production of my own in Orlando quite a while ago. I think it was like in 14 or 15. Robert Hill was directing there, and I went down and I had to revise it because he had a much smaller company. But so the challenge is just sort of coming up with clearing your head, utilizing the information that you have, but doing it differently. So that's the challenge. But yeah, I've kind of finished. Now it's all set. It's like, I don't want to have to do that again. But
I'm sure.
Yeah.
No, for me, it's a challenge as well, especially having done yours and Kevin's.
Right.
And now, sometimes little changes are harder to absorb.
Absolutely.
And to retain.
Oh, yeah.
That's what I was saying about especially Gamache and Lorenzo. It's very hard because you develop that character, and it's so much a part of who you are as a performer. And now we're asking it to be somewhat different. And there's minimal, like you can change Gamache's entrance, the steps, that helps to make it different. But there's a lot of it that's kind of not different. And there's a lot that'll be the same. And that's okay. That's kind of okay. So what else? What else do we have here? We're just getting close to our end of our time. I should say that Don Quixote is going to be performed from June 29th to July 7th. And there's more. But wait, there's more. I have to look at my email so the company is in addition to, they're pleased to offer the public that is listening to this book club a 30% discount on tickets to select performances of Don Quixote. So if you're registered and watching this discussion, you'll receive a discount code by email in the next few days. And to purchase tickets and see the full performance schedule, you can visit abt.org. So I was told I had to say that. Santo, what else can you add to all of this? What would you do if you were doing it from scratch again?
It would be quite different. I haven't thought about it ever, but it's, when a few years ago it came up, not about my being involved, but about a new production, possibly. Right. And so I thought, I wonder what I would do. And I think, the thing I think I would do that I have thought about is, I would change the sort of how you view it. I would almost make it more of you're looking into an arena or something like that, that it's all, more of an orb that it's in, that you're like a small person's view of like a bull rink or something like that.
Right.
And that maybe it's kind of Iris is in for the around the windmill in Act 2 and opens up, so it's more a space that shrinks and expands. And And then what the clothes are would be, maybe the palette would be different, but I think it's still that world.
Same influence, yeah.
Yeah, but it could be in a different kind of, as it were, sophistication. It's
right.
And a more of a real camera, almost like a camera point of view, rather than as what we're used to as a straightforward view.
Well, maybe I have to reconsider my last comment. If you get asked to do it again, maybe I have to.
It would be fun to do again. I can't believe I'm saying that, because I sort of look at my tired frocks and say, oh dear.
But it's been a lifetime for both of us since
unbelievable.
That's a lot of information. So of course you would want to do it differently.
You're right.
Santo,
and it's there was so much to learn from doing it, and that the dancers, whether it was Alexei throwing her tutu at me that she didn't like, that was my introduction to Alexei, whom Alex I adore, but I remember it vividly in Chicago.
Wow.
Devon had a question for you, I think, Santo.
Yes, Santo, it's funny because you're, am I correct in saying you created the dream scene tutus, all of those beautiful tutus?
Yes.
So it's funny because people often ask, what's your favorite tutu, or what's the most beautiful tutu? And like without fail, almost everyone will say the dream scene or the Dryad Queen tutu, and it is just the most magical, stunning.
Thank you.
Tutu. And I'm curious what your inspiration for those dreams.
It was really, I was looking at them, the cores are ancient, they're 50 years old. They're the same ones. And we've redone the Queen and the, and the sort of Prince and Kitcheries, but the core and the original costumes. And it was inspired, those dagged leaves. There was a piece of fabric, which I still have a big chunk of, that was the palette of those costumes. It was this kind of glaze of paisley melting, and it was all kind of these dusty colors of, not unlike the palette for the whole evening, which is sort of peach and aqua and beige, and Inigo Jones and his court masks, which are Elizabethan, and he did those dagged leaves, which is what the tutus are covered with. So it was very much after Inigo Jones and my own kind of taste on that sort of the dream, which you think of as through a dream, through a cloud, through the mist, and the windmill, and Dulcinea, who's very gray and glittering and like a specter rather than like a real image. And that was all that second act. It was just that sort of dreamscape.
Well, thank you for creating the most beautiful tutus that I've ever.
Thank you so much.
Anyone has gotten to see it. They're really stunning.
Great Barbara Matera. I had begun work with her, and then Don Q was my real introduction to her costume shop, which for many years was in our, your building at 890. And Barbara brought so much literally to the table, her own history, her own understanding, and her talk about a love for dance and ballet. It was, remarkable.
She was remarkable, yeah.
And she, I do things now with other people who came out of her shop, and I always say, we speak the same language because Barbara taught us that. And she could be very tough. You could be the stupid designer, often. And, there was a lot of that on Cinderella. Anyway, and when Susan, how could we have forgotten Everlast? I think that
Everlast was a Twyla Tharp ballet that was all Jerome Kern songs.
It had its charm, but whew.
With Georgina Parkinson with her
her crossover.
Basil, her dog, was actually on stage with her, and that it was hysterical, that ballet. Yeah. Amazing. Yeah, well, I think we've actually done it, team. We've gotten through it all, and I've certainly enjoyed myself, and I hope the people that are watching this have.
Yes.
So now go home and read your Cervantes
Yes,
before you see Don Quixote.
Yeah, so well, I don't think yes.
I don't think that's going to happen.
Hardly necessary.
Hardly necessary.
It's really the perfect summer night's entertainment is what it is.
Right, it is. Absolutely. And we all need entertainment at this point in our lives.
Yes.
So June 29th through July 7th. Our season starts next week on June 17th and runs through July 18th. So we expect to see you all there, the people that are watching and listening, and that you bring your friends too. We have a lot going on. And I have to say, Don Q and Sylvia are sort of the breath of fresh air ballets. We have the 2 weeks of Swan Lake, and we have Eugene Onegin, which we're always just so grateful to have in our repertory. And then we have the breath of fresh air of Don Q and Sylvia. So we hope all of you come. And thank you, Devon and Herman and Santo.
It was a pleasure.
Input. So that's it.